Well, if I had known we could have taped it and sent it in, as Brian Pallister did, I would have done that. On behalf of my whole family, I want to thank the Hall of Fame very much for this honor and this recognition from my father. It's actually a very special night for us. Both my sister Trish and my brother Bill from Toronto have flown in. Thanks to the storm, barely flown in. The last one arrived, I think, at 6:35 tonight. But it's great to have them here, and we're very honored. Our father was a very interesting and a very special kind of person. He had a number of passions, golf being one, politics being another, community being a third. And he was somebody that jumped in with both feet and jumped in hard. And he thought nothing of going and doing rules for tournaments for 2 or 3 weeks in the summer and then coming home and spending 3 months running an election campaign for Jim Richardson or Mark Honance. And I have to tell you, it drove my mother crazy because he was a commissioned life insurance salesman, and you don't make a lot of money when you're doing that. But this is the way he worked and the way he wanted to live, and it was very fun to follow. Yes, he did win a golf tournament on his honeymoon, and I always thought that was a little bit odd, but to be fair to him, it was the Jasper Park Totem Pole, and he put himself through university caddying in Jasper. And as he got older, he used to tell his grandchildren that 1941 was a very interesting year for him because his father died in January, his mother died in March, he got married in August and went to war in September, and so I always figured maybe you can cut him a little bit of slack on throwing a golf tournament in the middle of all of that. Golf was obviously his passion through everything, and as a family, our summer holidays were getting in a car and driving to a golf tournament so he could do rules, and it kind of sucked as young kids, but it got a little more interesting as you got older and you got a chance to meet people like Mr. Nicholas and Mr. Palmer and Billy Casper and people like that, and even for my brother and I, who got a chance to then caddy my brother for people like George Knutson and the great Bill Campbell, and me for Jimmy Doyle, actually, when he won the Canadian Amateur in Edmonton. So it was fun to follow him around, but he loved the game of golf, and he gave everything to it, including, he would tell you if he was here, he gave his golf game to it because he went from a scratch to a 16 handicap because all of his time was spent in the boardroom on golf. Just one quick story because it's got a Winnipeg tie to it. Obviously, being on the World Rules Committee was a big honor. The RNA had never given up a seat to anybody, let alone a Canadian, for the decade that he helped set the rules that everybody played by. But the Canadian Open is a very interesting piece because he was so passionate about the idea that there should be a central course for this great tournament. And he took a friend of his who was a Winnipegger, and people don't know that, but a Winnipegger named Rod McIsaac was very involved in the 1967 centennial, but he brought him out to a tournament in Toronto to show him what was needed, and he was a developer now working in Toronto. And he just happened to have this parcel of land near Oakville that had nothing on it except this old abbey. And ultimately, that's how the RCJ picked up the property and built Glen Abbey, and it was, from there, it went a long way, and it was great. Anyways, he was a very quiet person, but if he was here, I know he'd be very proud and he'd be very thankful. So on behalf of all of our family, thank you very much.